word of warning. This chapter is kind of in the middle of A Clash of Kings, which is the second book in A Song of Ice and Fire. I'm mostly reading this chapter aloud as practice, because I like it. It's a great chapter. This is Tyrion 2, I believe. Or maybe it's Tyrion 3. But this is the chapter with the counting where he beats all the people. And so spoilers, I guess. This doesn't spoil a whole lot, but it does spoil a few things. So if you haven't read the books, I would maybe not. Also, it's Song of Ice and Fire, it's Game of Thrones. Shit goes down, that is not pretty. So you've been warned. I do not sleep as I did when I was younger, Grand Maester Paisel told him, by way of apology for the dawn meeting. I would sooner be up, though the world be dark, he said, though his heavy-lidded eyes made him look half asleep as he said it. In the airy chambers beneath the rookery, his girl served them boiled eggs, stewed plums, and porridge, while Paisel served pontifications. In these sad times when so many hunger, I think it only fitting to keep my table spare. Commendable, Tyrion admitted, breaking a large brown egg that reminded him unduly of the Grand Maester's bald, spotted head. I take a different view. If there is food, I eat it, in case there is none on the morrow. He smiled. Tell me, are your ravens early risers as well? Paisel stroked the snowy beard that flowed to his chest. To be sure. Shall I send for quill and ink after we have eaten? No need. Tyrion laid the letters on the table beside his porridge, twin parchments tightly rolled and sealed with wax at both ends. Send your girl away so we can talk. Leave us, child, Paisel commanded. The serving girl hurried from the room. These letters now. For the eyes of Dorn Martell, Prince of Dorne. Tyrion peeled the cracked shell away from his egg and took a bite. It wanted salt. One letter in 2 copies. Send your swiftest birds. The matter is of great import. I shall dispatch them as soon as we have broken our fast. Dispatch them now. Stewed plums will keep. The realm may not. Lord Renly is leading his host up the Rosa Road, and no one can say when Lord Stannis will steal from Dragonstone. Paisel blinked. If my lord prefers, he does. I am here to serve. The maester pushed himself ponderously to his feet, his chain of office clinking softly. It was a heavy thing. A dozen maester's collars threaded around and through each other and ornamented with gemstones, and it seemed to Tyrion that the gold and silver and platinum links far outnumbered those of the baser metals. Paisel moved so slowly that Tyrion had time to finish his egg and taste the plums, overcooked and watery to his taste, before the sound of wings prompted him to rise. He spied the raven, dark in the dawn sky, and turned briskly toward the maze of shelves at the far end of the room. The maester's medicines made an impressive display, dozens of pots sealed with wax, hundreds of stoppered vials, and many milk-glass bottles, countless jars of dried herbs, each container neatly labeled in Paisel's precise hand. An orderly mind, Tyrion reflected, and indeed, once you puzzled out the arrangement, it was easy to see that every potion had its place, and such interesting things. He noted sweet sleep and nightshade, milk of the poppy, the tears of Lys, powdered greycap, wolfsbane and demon's dance, basilisk venom, blind eye, widow's blood. Standing on his toes and striding upward, he managed to pull a small dusty bottle off the high shelf. When he read the label, he smiled and slipped it up his sleeve. He was back at the table peeling another egg when Grand Maester Paisel came into the room. It is done, my lord. The old man seated himself. A matter like this, best done promptly, indeed, indeed. Of great import, you say? Oh, yes. The porridge was too thick, Tyrion felt, and wanted butter and honey. To be sure, butter and honey were seldom seen in King's Landing of late, though Lord Giles kept them well supplied in the castle. Half of the food they ate these days came from his lands or Lady Tanda's. Rosby and Stokeworth lay near the city to the north and were yet untouched by war. The Prince of Dorne himself? Might I ask? Best not. As you say. Paisel's curiosity was so ripe, Tyrion could almost taste it. Mayhaps the king's council. Tyrion tapped his wooden spoon against the edge of the bowl. The council exists to advise the king, Maester. Just so, said Pycelle. And the king is a boy of 13. I speak with his voice. So you do, indeed. The king's own hand. Yet, your most gracious sister, a queen regent, she. There's a great weight upon those lovely wide shoulders of hers. I have no wish to add to her burdens. Do you? Tyrion cocked his head and gave the Grand Maester an inquiring stare. Pycelle dropped his gaze back to his food. Something about Tyrion's mismatched green and black eyes made men squirm. Knowing that, he made good use of them. Ah, the old man muttered into his plums. Doubtless you have the right of it, my lord. It is most considerate of you to spare her this burden. That's just the sort of fellow I am. Tyrion returned to the unsatisfactory porridge. Considerate. Cersei is my own sweet sister, after all. And a woman, to be sure, Grand Maester Pycelle said. A most uncommon woman, and yet it is no small thing to tend to all the cares of the realm, despite the frailty of her sex. Oh yes, she's a frail dove. Just ask Eddard Stark. I'm pleased you share my concern, and I thank you for the hospitality of your table, but a long day awaits. He swung his legs out and clambered down from his chair. Be so good as to inform me at once should we receive a reply from Dorne? As you say, my lord. And only me? To be sure. Pycelle's spotted hand was clutching at his beard the way a drowning man clutches for rope. It made Tyrion's heart glad. One, he thought. He waddled out into the lower bailey. His stunted legs complained of the steps. The sun was well up now, and the castle was stirring. Guardsmen walked the walls, and knights and men-at-arms were training with blunted weapons. Nearby, Bronn sat the lip of the well. A pair of comely serving girls sauntered past, carrying a wicker basket of rushes between them, but the sellsword never looked. Bronn, I despair of you. Tyrion gestured at the wenches. With sweet sights like that before you, all I see is a gaggle of louts raising a clangor. There are 100 whorehouses in this city where a clipped copper will buy me all the cunt I want, Bronn answered. But one day my life may hang on how close I've watched your louts. He stood. Who's the boy in the checkered blue surcoat with 3 eyes on his shield? Some hedge knight. Talad, he names himself. Why? Bronn pushed a fall of hair from his eyes. He's the best of them. But watch him. He falls into a rhythm, delivering the same strokes in the same order each time he attacks. He grinned. That will be the death of him, the day he faces me. He's pledged to Joffrey. He's not like to face you. They set off across the bailey, Bronn matching his long stride to Tyrion's short one. These days the sellsword was looking almost respectable. His dark hair was washed and brushed. He was freshly shaved, and wore the black breastplate of an officer of the city watch. From his shoulders trailed a cloak of Lannister crimson, patterned with golden hands. Tyrion had made him a gift of it when he named him captain of his personal guard. How many supplicants do we have today? Tyrion inquired. 30-odd, answered Bronn. Most with complaints or wanting something as ever. Your pet is back. He groaned. Lady Tanda. Her page, she invites you to sup with her again. There's to be a haunch of venison, she says, a brace of stuffed geese with mulberries, and her daughter. Tyrion finished sourly. Since the hour he had arrived within the Red Keep, Lady Tanda had been stalking him, armed with a never-ending arsenal of lamprey pies, wild boars, and savory cream stews. Somehow she had gotten the notion that a dwarf lordling would be the perfect consort for her daughter, Lollius, a large, soft, dim-witted girl, whose rumors said was still a maid at 33. Send her my regrets. No taste for stuffed goose? Bronn grinned evilly. Perhaps you should eat the goose and marry the maid. Or better still, send Shagga. Shagga's more like to eat the maid and marry the goose, observed Bronn. Anyway, Lollius outweighs him. There is that, Tyrion admitted, as they passed under the shadow of a covered walkway between 2 towers. Who else wants me? The sellsword grew more serious. There's a moneylender from Bravos, holding fancy papers and the like, requests to see a king about the payment on some loan. As if Joff could count past 20. Send the man to Littlefinger. He'll find a way to put him off. Next. A lord laying down from the trident says your father's men burned his keep, raped his wife, and killed all his peasants. I believe they call that war. Tyrion smelled Sir Gregor Clegane's work, or that of Amory Lorch, or his father's other pet hellhound, the Kohoric. What does he want of Joffrey? New peasants, Bronn said. He walked all this way to sing how loyal he is and beg for recompense. Whether truly loyal or merely desperate, a compliant river lord might have his uses. See, he's given a comfortable chamber and a hot meal. Send him a new pair of boots as courtesy of King Joffrey. A show of generosity never hurt. There's also a great gaggle of bakers, butchers, and greengrocers clamoring to be heard. I told them last time I have nothing to give them. Only a thin trickle of food was coming into King's Landing, most of it earmarked for castle and garrison. Prices had ridden sickeningly high on greens, roots, flour, and fruit, and Tyrion did not want to think about what sorts of flesh might be going into the kettles of the potshops down in Fleet Bottom. Fish, he hoped. They still had the river and the sea, at least until Lord Stannis sailed. They want protection. Last night a baker was roasted in his own oven. The mob claimed he charged too much for bread. Did he? He's not apt to deny it. They didn't eat him, did they? Not that I've heard. Next time they will, Tyrion said grimly. I'll give them what protection I can. The gold cloaks. They claim there were gold cloaks in the mob, Bronn said. They're demanding to speak with the king himself. Fools! Tyrion had sent them off with regrets. His nephew would send them off with whips and spears. He was half tempted to allow it. But no, he dared not. Sooner or late, some enemy would march on King's Landing, and the last thing he wanted was willing traitors within the city walls. Tell them King Joffrey shares their fears and concerns, and he will do all he can for them. They want bread, not promises. If I give them bread today, on the morrow I'll have twice as many gates. Who else? A black brother down from the wall. The steward says he brought some rotted hand in a jar. Tyrion smiled wanly. I'm surprised no one ate it. I suppose I ought to see him. It's not Yoren, perchance. No, some knight, Thorne. Sir Alistair Thorne? Of all the black brothers he met on the wall, Tyrion Lannister had liked Sir Alistair Thorne the least. A bitter, mean-spirited man with too great a sense of his own worth. Come to think of it, I don't believe I care to see Sir Alistair just now. Find him a snug cell where no one has changed the rushes in a year, and let his hand rot a little more. Bronn snorted with laughter and went his way, while Tyrion struggled up the serpentine steps. As he limped across the outer yard, he heard the portcullis rattling up. His sister and a large party were waiting by the main gate. Mounted on her white palfrey, Cersei towered high above him, a goddess in green. Brother, she called out, not warmly. The queen had not been pleased by the way he dealt with Janos Slynt. Your grace? Tyrion bowed politely. You look lovely this morning. Her crown was gold, her cloak ermine. Her retinue sat their mounts behind her, Sir Boros Blount of the Kingsguard wearing white scale and his favorite scowl. Sir Balon Swan, bow slung from his silver inlay saddle. Lord Giles Rosby, his wheezing cough worse than ever. Hallen the pyromancer of the Alchemists' Guild, and the Queen's newest favorite, their cousin, Sir Lancel Lannister, her late husband's squire, up-jumped tonight at his widow's insistence. Vylar and 20 guardsmen rode escort. Where are you bound to this day, sister? Tyrion asked. Making a round of the gates to inspect the new Scorpions and Spitfires. I would not have it thought that all of us are indifferent to the city's defense as you seem to be. Cersei fixed him with those clear green eyes of hers, beautiful even in their contempt. I am informed that Renly Baratheon has marched from Highgarden. He is making his way up the Rosa Road with all his strength behind him. Varys gave me the same report. He could be here by the full moon. Not at his present leisurely pace, Tyrion assured her. He feasts every night in a different castle, and holds court at every crossroads he passes by. And every day more men rally to his banners. His host is now said to be more than 100,000 strong. That seems rather high. He has the power of Storms and Highgarden behind him, you little fool. Cersei snapped down at him.
All the Tyrell bannermen but for the red wines, and you have me to thank for that. So long as I hold those poxy twins of his, Lord Paxter will squat in the arbor and count himself fortunate to be out of it.
A pity you let the Night of Flowers slip through your pretty little fingers. Still, Renly has other concerns besides us. Were I he, I would do much as he is doing. Make my progress, flaunt my power for the realm to see, wait and watch. Let my rivals contend while I bide my own time. If Stark defeats us, the South will fall into Renly's hands like a windfall from the gods, and he won't have lost a man. And if it goes the other way, he can descend on us while we are weakened. Cersei was not appeased.
I want you to make father bring his army to King's Landing.
Where it will serve no purpose but to make you feel safe. When have I ever been able to make father do anything? She ignored the question.
And when do you plan to free Jaime? He's worth 100 of you.
Tyrion grinned crookedly. Don't tell Lady Stark, I beg you. We don't have 100 of me to trade.
Father must have been mad to send you. You're worse than useless.
The queen jerked on her reins and wheeled her palfrey around. She rode at the gate at a brisk trot, ermine cloak streaming behind her. The retinue hastened after. In truth, Renly Baratheon did not frighten Tyrion half so much as his brother Stannis. Renly was beloved of the commons, but he never before led men in war. Stannis was otherwise, hard, cold, and inexorable. If only they had some way of knowing what was happening on Dragonstone. But none of the fisherfolk he had paid to spy out of the island had ever returned, and even the informers the eunuch claimed to have placed in Stannis' household had been ominously silent. The stripped hulls of Lysine war galleys have been seen offshore, though, and bearers had reports from Myr of sail captains taking service with Dragonstone. If Stannis attacks by sea while his brother Renly storms the gates, they'll soon be mounting Joffrey's head on a spike. Worse, mine will be beside him. A depressing thought. He ought to make plans to get Shay safely out of the city, should the war seem likely. Podrick Payne stood at the door of his cellar, studying the floor.
He's inside,
he announced to Tyrion's belt buckle.
Your cellar, my lord. I'm sorry.
Tyrion sighed. Look at me, Pod. It unnerves me when you talk to my codpiece, especially when I'm not wearing one. Who is inside my cellar?
Lord Littlefinger.
Podrick managed a quick look at his face, then hastily dropped to the codpiece.
I meant Lord Peter Baelish, the Master of Coin.
You make him sound a crowd. The boy hunched down as if struck, making Tyrion feel absurdly guilty. He was seated on his window seat, languid and elegant, in a plush plum-colored doublet and a yellow satin cape, one gloved hand resting on his knee.
The king is fighting hares with a crossbow, he said. The hares are winning. Come see.
Tyrion had to stand on his toes to get a look. A dead hare lay on the ground below. Another, long ears twitching, was about to expire from the bolt in his side. Spent quarrels lay strewn across the hard-packed earth, like straws scattered by a storm.
Now!
Joffrey shouted. The gamesman released the hare he was holding, and he went bounding off. Joffrey jerked the trigger on the crossbow. The bolt missed by 2 feet. The hare stood on his hind legs and twitched his nose at the king. Cursing, Joff spun the wheel to winch back a string, but the animal was gone before he loaded. Another! The gamesman reached into the notch. This one made a brown streak against the stones, while Joffrey's hurried shot almost took Sir Preston in the groin. Littlefinger turned away. Boy, are you fond of potted hare? Yes, Podrick Payne. Pod stared at the visitor's boots, lovely things of red-dyed leather ornamented with black scrollwork.
To eat, my lord?
Invest in pots, Littlefinger advised.
Hares will soon overrun the castle. We'll be eating hare thrice a day.
Better than rats on a skewer, said Tyrion. Pod, leave us, unless Lord Peter would care for some refreshment.
Thank you, but no.
Littlefinger flashed his mocking smile.
Drink with the dwarf, it said, and you wake up walking the wall. Black brings out my unhealthy pallor.
Have no fear, my lord, Tyrion thought. It's not the wall I have in mind for you. He seated himself in a high chair piled with cushions and said, You look very elegant today, my lord.
I'm wounded. I strive to look elegant every day.
Is the doublet new?
It is. You are most observant.
Plum and yellow. Are those the colors of your house?
No, but A man gets bored wearing the same colors day in and day out, or so I've found.
It's a handsome knife as well.
Is it?
There was mischief in Littlefinger's eyes. He drew the knife and glanced at it casually, as if he had never seen it before.
Valyrian steel and a dragonbone hilt. A trifle plain, though. It's yours if you would like it.
Mine? Tyrion gave him a long look. No, I think not. Never mine. He knows, the insolent wretch. He knows, and he knows that I know, and he thinks that I cannot touch him. If ever a man had truly armed himself in gold, it was Peter Baelish, not Jaime Lannister. Jaime's famous armor was but gilded steel, but little...
Yeah, hey, as it turns out, recording this shit is, fucking hard. So here are some funny bloopers for bearing my terrible, speaking. Thank you.
Sleep as I did when I was younger, Grandmaster Patel sold him.
Wow.
He noted sweet sleep. And difficult words to say, like sweet sleep. Fuck. Though Lord Giles kept them well supplied in the castle. Niall then slipped it up his sleeve. He was back at the table peeling another egg when Maisel came. What is wrong with me? Half the food they ate these days came from his lands or Lady Tanda's. I literally just skipped a line. Great. And were yet untouched by war. The Prince of... I really regret doing this voice. Turn, and I thank you for the hospitality. Look of Lannister crimson, patterned with golden... Patterned with, spicy Lannister burps, TM. Worse than ever. Halion the Palaman. What the fuck is a Palamancer? His cloak? Oh my god. Lord Peter was seated on his window seat. That was simply not very good. Her super duper crazy alive husband's squire, yep.
Found.
Is it?
Can't really pretend I can't really pretend that line's not there, because that's the pretty important line. Fuck.
Spent quarrels lay stew. Oh my god, I am struggling. Now, wow. It is too late for me to be doing this, but I cannot go to sleep, so here we are. Now! Joff shouted. The gamesman released the hare, and Joff just said, Emperor Joffrey Palpatine, unlimited incest.